The months passed quickly and the seasons changed again. The air grew warmer, the trees bloomed with fresh leaves, and life at Riverside High seemed calm and full of color. Maya had become a quiet star, not because she was loud or popular, but because she carried peace wherever she went. Her laughter had returned. Her paintings filled the school with light, and her father's eyes often softened when he saw how far she had come. But deep inside, David knew there was still one battle they had not yet won, a silent one. One morning, Maya woke up feeling tired. It wasn't the usual tiredness after schoolwork. It was deeper. She sat at the edge of her bed, holding her scarf, breathing slowly. Her reflection in the mirror looked pale, and though she smiled, she could see the weariness behind her eyes. Her mother, Grace, noticed it too. "You okay, sweetheart?" she asked softly. Maya nodded. "Just a little tired. I think I need to rest." Grace touched her forehead and frowned. "You don't feel warm? But maybe we should check in with the doctor." Maya agreed quietly. She had always been brave, but the hospital still carried memories. Long hours, white walls, and whispers about hope. Later that day, David drove her to the hospital. He held her hand the whole time. Though he smiled, his mind was alert, his heart tight. Inside, they met Dr. Patel, who had treated Maya since her diagnosis. She greeted them kindly, but her face grew serious after checking Maya's reports. "We'll need to run some new tests," the doctor said gently. "It might just be exhaustion, but I want to be sure." Maya nodded. "Okay," David squeezed her hand. "We'll face it, whatever it is." A few days later, they got the results. The cancer had returned, not as strong as before, but enough to need more treatment. For a moment, silence filled the room. Maya looked at her father, her eyes calm but glistening. "So the storm's back?" David took a deep breath. "Maybe, but you faced storms before, and you always came out stronger." Dr. Patel smiled softly. "We caught it early. With treatment and rest, you can recover again." Maya nodded, her voice quiet but steady. "Then let's do it." When they got home, David sat alone in the backyard for a while. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and gold. He closed his eyes, remembering all the missions he had survived. Cold seas, long nights, impossible odds. But none of that ever scared him like this. He whispered to himself, "You can't fight this for her. You can only stand beside her." He made a promise, not to let her lose hope, not for a single day. At school, the news slowly spread. Maya took a break from classes for treatment, but everyone missed her. Her friends, Nina, Tina, and Ryan, started a small group called Maya's Promise. They wore blue bracelets that said, "Stay kind, stay strong." They visited her every week, bringing letters, drawings, and cheerful stories from school. Maya always smiled when they came, though she grew weaker each time. One day, Ryan told her, "The art club made a big painting for you. It's hanging near the main gate." Maya's eyes lit up. "Really?" "Yeah," Nina said. "It says courage doesn't mean fighting others. It means never giving up." Everyone signed their names on it. Maya laughed softly. "You guys are the best." Meanwhile, David stayed by her side through every treatment. He learned how to prepare her meals, how to help her sleep comfortably, and how to make her laugh when pain tried to take away her smile. He often told her Navy stories, not about war, but about brotherhood, teamwork, and calmness under pressure. "Once," he said, sitting beside her bed, "my team and I were stuck in the middle of a storm at sea. The waves were taller than buildings. Everyone panicked. But our captain said something I'll never forget. If the sea roars louder, stay quieter inside." Maya listened with a small smile. "So I just need to be quiet inside?" David nodded. "Yes, that's how you win, not with noise, but with peace." Weeks went by. The treatments were hard, but Maya kept painting. She filled her sketchbook with pictures of sunlight breaking through clouds, birds flying above stormy seas, and flowers growing from stones. Her doctors were amazed by her spirit. "She gives strength to everyone around her," Dr. Patel said one day. "Even the nurses wait for her smile." At home, Grace often cried quietly in the kitchen, but David would hold her and whisper, "She's a fighter. She gets that from you." One afternoon, Maya felt strong enough to visit school for a few hours. When she arrived, the students gathered around, cheering and clapping. The principal welcomed her warmly. "We've missed you, Maya," Maya smiled. "I missed everyone too." As she walked down the hallway, she saw posters from the kindness campaign still hanging on the walls. One said, "Kindness can heal what medicine cannot," Tina whispered. "You inspired all of this." Maya shook her head. "We all did. I just started it." During lunch, the same 3 boys who had once bullied her came forward. Mark spoke first, his voice nervous. "Hey, we heard about what you're going through. We're really sorry for everything we did before." Maya looked at them kindly. "Thank you. It means a lot," Mark hesitated. "We started helping with the Kindness Club. We wanted to do something right this time." Maya smiled. "Then you already did." They nodded, feeling relief, and walked away quietly. That evening, as they drove home, David looked at her and said, "You know, Maya, you've done something I never could." She turned to him. "What do you mean?" "You changed hearts, not with power, not with fear, but with love. I spent years learning how to fight enemies. You taught people how to stop being enemies." Maya smiled faintly. "You taught me how to be calm." "I just shared it," he chuckled. "Then we make a good team." As the weeks turned into months, her health began to improve. Slowly but surely, her energy returned. The doctors said the treatment was working, and hope grew again like spring after a long winter. On the day she finished her final session, the hospital staff surprised her with a small celebration. There were balloons, a cake, and a banner that said, "You did it, Maya." Dr. Patel hugged her gently. "You've been one of my bravest patients. You didn't just survive, you inspired everyone." Maya smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "Thank you for helping me live again." When they got home, David had one more surprise. He led her to the backyard where a new wooden bench stood under the big tree. On it was carved a single line. The storm tried to break her, but she learned to dance in the rain. Maya ran her fingers over the words. "You made this?" David nodded. "Every night after you slept. It's for you, and for anyone who ever forgets how strong they are." Maya hugged him tightly. "I'll never forget." A few weeks later, the school organized a special event, Day of Courage. Maya was asked to speak. At first, she felt nervous. Standing on stage in front of hundreds of people wasn't easy. But when she saw her parents, her friends, and even the students who once bullied her sitting in the front row, she found her voice. She stepped to the microphone and said softly, "I used to think courage was about being fearless. But now I know it's about facing fear and choosing kindness anyway." She paused, her eyes moving across the crowd. "When I lost my hair, I thought I lost my strength. But then I realized, strength isn't in how you look. It's in how you love. It's in forgiveness. It's in standing tall even when people don't understand you." The hall was silent, every word sinking deep. "My father once told me," she continued, "that calm is power, and he was right. When you stay calm, you can hear your heart cock, and when you follow it, you can change the world." She ended with a smile. So if you ever meet someone who's different or going through pain, be kind, because kindness is stronger than anything else. The crowd stood and clapped for a long time. Some had tears in their eyes. David wiped his own quietly, pride shining brighter than words could say. That night, as the stars filled the sky, Maya sat outside with her father. The air was cool and peaceful. She whispered, "You know, Dad, I think the storm is over." He looked at her with a soft smile. "Maybe, but even if another one comes, I know you'll face it with courage." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "I will, because you taught me how." They sat in silence, watching the moon rise. Two souls who had walked through darkness and found light together. And from that night onward, Maya's story spread far beyond her town, reminding people everywhere that true strength isn't in fighting others, but in never losing your kindness no matter how hard life gets. The days at Riverside High grew peaceful again. Laughter filled the halls, and the kindness campaign continued to spread warmth across the school. Maya had become a quiet inspiration for everyone. Her art was displayed in the library, and teachers often spoke about her courage. But life, like the ocean, doesn't stay calm forever. One cloudy Thursday morning, as Maya walked to school with her backpack swinging at her side, the sky looked heavy and gray. A cold wind moved through the streets, carrying the smell of rain. David watched her from the porch, sipping his coffee. Something about the air made him uneasy, a feeling he hadn't had since his Navy days. He didn't know why, but his instincts whispered that something was coming. At school, everything started normally. Maya met Nina by her locker and shared a small laugh. They talked about an art project they were planning to do together. But then at lunch, a new group of students arrived, 3 boys who had recently transferred from another school. They were older, louder, and didn't know about the kindness campaign or Maya's story. At first, they were just curious. They noticed Maya's scarf and whispered to each other. But soon their whispers turned into mocking jokes. One of them, Mark, leaned back in his chair and said loudly, "Hey, why do you wear that thing on your head? Trying to start a trend?" The cafeteria went silent for a second. Some students looked at them, others looked away. Tina, who was sitting nearby, frowned. She stood up and said, "Leave her alone." Mark laughed. "Oh, you're her bodyguard now?" Tina crossed her arms. "You don't even know her story," Mark shrugged. "Don't need to. It's just a question." Maya stayed calm. She didn't look at them, didn't speak. She had learned that silence was sometimes stronger than words. But deep inside, her heart began to race. After lunch, Maya went to the art room to calm herself. Painting always helped her clear her thoughts. She picked up her brush and started to paint a forest after the rain. But even as colors filled the canvas, her mind couldn't quiet down. Nina came in looking worried. "Hey, don't let them bother you. They're just trying to get attention." Maya smiled weakly. "I know, but sometimes it still hurts." Nina nodded. "I get that. But you're not alone this time, remember?" Maya looked at her friend and felt warmth return to her chest. "Yeah, I remember." That evening, David noticed the silence at dinner. Maya picked at her food, her thoughts far away. "Something happened today?" he asked gently. She hesitated. "Just new kids. They said some things. But it's fine." David put down his fork. "Words can hurt even if we try to ignore them. You don't have to pretend." Maya looked at him. "I thought things were getting better." "They are," he said softly. "But sometimes life tests us again, just to see if we've really learned." She nodded slowly. "I'll try to stay calm," he smiled. "That's my brave girl." Over the next few days, the new boys kept teasing her. It wasn't constant, but enough to make her uncomfortable. They'd whisper comments when she passed by or laugh softly during class. Some students told them to stop, but others stayed quiet, afraid to get involved. One afternoon, when Maya was walking home, she realized someone was following her. She turned and saw Mark and his friends walking behind, laughing. "Hey, we're just going the same way," one of them said with a grin. Maya quickened her pace. Her house wasn't far, but her heart started to beat faster. She didn't want trouble. Just as she turned the corner, a deep voice called out, "Everything okay here?" It was David. He had been outside watering the plants and saw them coming down the street. The boys stopped. David stood tall, calm, and silent, the kind of quiet that carried strength. His eyes, sharp and steady, looked at them without anger but with authority. Mark swallowed hard. Yeah, we were just leaving." David nodded once. "Good idea." The boys quickly turned and walked away. Maya ran to her father and hugged him tightly. "Thank you." He patted her back gently. "You're safe now." "Don't worry," she looked up. "You didn't even shout." He smiled slightly. "Sometimes you don't need to. When you've seen real storms, you learn how to stand without noise." That night, David couldn't sleep. He sat by the window looking at the quiet street. The protective instinct inside him was strong. He knew he couldn't fight his daughter's battles for her, but he also knew he had to prepare her for the world. The next morning, he woke her early. "Come outside," he said. Maya blinked sleepily. "Why?" "It's still early." "Training," he said with a grin. She laughed. "Training?" "I'm not joining the Navy," David chuckled. "No, but you're going to learn something every Navy SEAL knows. Balance, focus, and calm under pressure. In the backyard." He set up a simple course. Stepping stones, ropes, and a wooden beam he made years ago. "Let's call this Operation Calm," he said playfully. Maya smiled and followed his instructions. He taught her breathing exercises, how to stay balanced even when things around her felt shaky, and how to stay focused when people tried to pull her down. At first, she stumbled and laughed, but slowly she learned. Her steps became steady, her breathing smooth, her focus sharp. By the end of the week, she could walk across the beam with her eyes closed. David clapped. "See, the mind controls everything. Once you master your calm, no one can shake you." Maya grinned. "You're a good teacher," he smiled back. "And you're the best student I've ever had." A few days later, the school announced an outdoor field trip, a hike through the nearby forest. It was supposed to be a fun day for everyone. Maya decided to go, though she was nervous about being around the new boys again. When the buses arrived at the trail, students spread out in groups. Maya walked with Nina and Tina, enjoying the sunlight and fresh air. Halfway through the hike, they stopped for lunch near a stream. The place was beautiful. Tall trees, birds singing, and cool wind brushing through the grass. But while everyone was busy talking and eating, Mark and his friends decided to play a prank. They whispered and pointed toward Maya, who was sitting near the water sketching in her notebook. "Let's scare her," one of them said. They sneaked behind her and shouted loudly. Maya flinched, losing balance, and her sketchbook slipped into the water. The laughter that followed was short-lived. Because Tina stood up immediately, her face serious. "That's not funny," she said sharply. Nina helped Maya up. "Are you okay?" Maya nodded, though her eyes looked sad. She bent down and tried to reach for her sketchbook, but it was floating away. Then something unexpected happened. Ryan, the boy who had defended Maya before, jumped into the shallow stream, grabbed the notebook and handed it to her. "Got it," he said with a smile. Everyone around started clapping. The laughter turned into silence and the boys looked embarrassed. Mark muttered, "It was just a joke." But one of the teachers had seen everything. "A joke that went too far," she said firmly. "We'll talk about this later." The rest of the trip went quietly. Maya sat with her friends, drying her sketchbook and feeling grateful for the kindness around her. That evening when she got home, David was waiting at the gate. "How was the trip?" he asked. Maya smiled faintly. "It had some bad moments, but it ended okay. Someone helped me." David nodded slowly. "Good. The world still has people who do the right thing." He looked at her closely. "You handled it well?" She nodded. "I didn't cry. I stayed calm, just like you taught me." He smiled proudly. "Then you've learned the most important lesson of all." The next day, the principal called an assembly. She spoke firmly about respect, kindness, and consequences for those who hurt others. Without naming names, everyone knew what it was about. Afterward, Mark came to Maya quietly. He looked nervous and said, "I'm sorry. We didn't mean for things to go that far." Maya looked at him calmly. "I forgive you," he blinked. "Just like that?" She nodded. "Everyone makes mistakes. What matters is that you don't repeat them." Mark nodded slowly. "You're different," Maya smiled softly. "Maybe, but you can be too." Weeks passed. Peace returned again. The kindness campaign had grown into something bigger, a permanent part of the school's culture. Every month, students organized small acts of kindness, helping in hospitals, donating books, planting trees. Maya became part of the team that led those events. Her paintings were used on posters and flyers. She spoke softly at gatherings, always reminding others that being kind didn't make anyone weak. It made them powerful. Her story spread beyond Riverside High. The local newspaper wrote an article about her journey, calling it "The Girl Who Turned Pain into Strength." When David read it, he smiled quietly. "Looks like the world finally knows what I've known all along." Maya laughed. "You mean that I talk too much?" He grinned. "No, that you shine even after the storm." One evening, as they sat in the garden watching the sunset, Maya said, "You know, Dad, I used to think you were brave because you were in the Navy. But now I think bravery means something else." David tilted his head. "Oh yeah, what's that?" "Bravery," she said slowly, "is staying kind even when the world isn't." He smiled proudly. "That's the best definition I've ever heard." They sat quietly side by side as the sky turned from gold to purple. The wind carried the scent of flowers and the sound of peace, the peace they both had fought for in their own ways, but neither of them knew that one last challenge was still waiting, one that would show just how powerful love and courage could truly be. The sun shone softly through the school windows as students began to talk about the new kindness campaign. Posters decorated the hallways, painted with words like respect, empathy, and we all belong. At first, most students didn't take it seriously. They thought it was just another school event that would be forgotten in a week. But for Maya, it meant something deeper. It was a sign that things could change, not just for her, but for anyone who felt different or alone. She stood by the bulletin board, reading one of the posters. It showed a drawing of two hands reaching for each other with the words, "Be the reason someone smiles today." Her lips curved into a gentle smile. She didn't know her father was behind this idea, that his quiet talks with the principal had inspired the whole project. In art class, Mr. Harris asked the students to help design decorations for the campaign. "Maya," he said kindly, "you have a good eye for peaceful colors. Would you help make the main banner?" Maya hesitated. "I can try," Nina grinned. "I'll help too." Together they painted a large banner that said, "Kindness starts with us." Maya used calm shades of blue and yellow. As she brushed the colors, she felt a quiet joy in her chest, like she was painting hope itself. When the banner was finished, Mr. Harris smiled. "Beautiful work, both of you. This will hang right above the entrance." When the other students saw it, many were surprised. Even Tina stopped for a moment to stare. She didn't say anything, but a small part of her felt something unusual, a feeling she hadn't felt in a long time. Guilt. Days passed, and the campaign began. Students were encouraged to write kind notes and leave them in a kindness box. Every morning, the principal would read a few aloud during announcements. At first, the notes were simple. "Thanks to the lunch lady for always smiling. My friend helped me study for math. Someone said I looked nice today. It made me happy." But soon the notes became more personal. Messages about courage, kindness, and forgiveness. One morning, a note was read that made Maya freeze. It said, "To the girl who wears a scarf, and you are stronger than anyone I know. You don't even know me, but your calm made me change how I see people." Whispers filled the room. Some students turned to look at Maya with soft smiles. She blushed and looked down, feeling warmth spread in her chest. Meanwhile, at home, David noticed his daughter's happiness growing. Every day she shared something new. A friendly smile from a classmate, a teacher's praise, or someone sitting beside her at lunch. He listened quietly, his eyes proud. "That's what happens," he said one evening. "When one brave person stands up, others follow." Maya smiled. "I didn't do much." He shook his head. "You did everything. You didn't fight back. You showed who you really are. That's real strength." But deep inside, Tina still struggled. The guilt she felt after the art fair hadn't left her. Every time she saw Maya laughing with Nina, it burned quietly inside. She didn't understand why. One afternoon, as she sat with her friends, she noticed one of them reading a kindness note. "What's that?" Tina asked. Her friend smiled. "It's for the campaign. I wrote something nice about the janitor. He always helps me when I forget my locker key." Tina rolled her eyes. "You're all acting like this kindness thing is magic." Her friend shrugged. "Maybe it is." For the first time, Tina didn't laugh. She looked away, silent. The next day, something unexpected happened. During lunch, a few kids began to whisper again about Maya, repeating old rumors that she had faked her illness. This time, however, another student, Ryan, stood up. "That's not true," he said firmly. "You don't know what she's been through. She's one of the strongest people here." The cafeteria went quiet. Ryan continued. "You all saw how she handled everything. She didn't hurt anyone. She just stayed kind." The whispering stopped. Maya, sitting a few tables away, heard what he said but didn't turn around. Her eyes filled with quiet tears, not of sadness, but gratitude she wasn't alone anymore. Later that day, Mr. Harris asked Maya to speak at the end of the Kindness Campaign week. "I think your story could help others," he said gently. Maya's eyes widened. "Me? Speak in front of everyone?" He smiled. "Just be yourself. You don't have to be perfect. Just honest." That night she told her father about it. "What if I forget my words?" she asked nervously. David chuckled. "In my missions we had to speak to hundreds of people, sometimes under stress. I learned one thing: speak from your heart. Words don't have to be strong. Truth does." Maya nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll try," he smiled. "I'll be there, front row." The next morning, the school gym was full. Students, teachers, and parents sat in rows. The banner, "Kindness Starts With Us," hung proudly above the stage. One by one, students shared short messages. Some talked about helping friends, others about forgiving bullies. Then it was Maya's turn. She walked up slowly, her heart pounding. Her scarf shimmered softly under the lights. Taking a deep breath, she looked at the crowd and said, "I used to think being different was something bad. People laughed at me, and I didn't understand why. But I learned that sometimes people don't mean to hurt others. They just don't understand what others go through. The gym was silent. Even Tina, sitting in the third row, looked up, her eyes fixed on Maya. Maya continued, "I had cancer. It made me lose my hair, my strength, and sometimes my hope. But I never lost one thing, the will to be kind. Because kindness doesn't need strength. It only needs heart." Her voice trembled slightly, but she smiled. "I'm still healing. But I'm not ashamed anymore. I'm proud of my scars because they mean I survived." For a moment, no one spoke. Then the gym erupted in applause. Some students stood, clapping loudly. Even teachers wiped their eyes. David watched from the back, his eyes shining. To him, it felt like watching a soldier win a battle, not with weapons, but with courage. After the assembly, students came to Maya, thanking her. Some hugged her, others just smiled. But one person stood alone near the corner, Tina. Her eyes were red, her hands shaking slightly. She walked toward Maya slowly. "Hey," she said quietly. Maya turned. "Hi," Tina swallowed. I'm sorry. For everything. For what I said, for what I did. You didn't deserve any of it." For a long moment, Maya didn't speak. Then she smiled gently. "It's okay. I forgive you." Tina blinked. "Just like that?" Maya nodded. "Holding anger doesn't help. I don't want anyone to feel the way I did." Tina's eyes filled with tears. You're better than I ever was." Maya shook her head. "No, you just needed someone to show you it's okay to change." Tina nodded slowly, her lips trembling. "Thank you." From that day on, something changed in Riverside High. The kindness campaign didn't end. It became part of the school. Students treated each other differently. They started helping more, judging less, smiling more often. Maya became a quiet symbol of hope. Teachers often mentioned her story when they talked about courage. She didn't ask for fame or attention. She just wanted everyone to understand that kindness could heal hearts. Even Tina changed. She began volunteering at the school library and helped organize a fundraiser for children's hospitals. One afternoon, she even asked Maya if they could paint something together. They painted a mural on the back wall of the art room, a bright sky with the words, "Every storm ends with light." When they finished, they stood side by side, smiling. "It's beautiful," Maya said softly. Tina nodded. "It feels peaceful." For the first time, both girls felt like friends, not enemies. That evening, when Maya returned home, David was waiting on the porch. He looked at her with a proud smile. "So how was your big day?" She sat beside him. "I forgave her." "Who?" "Tina," David nodded slowly. "That takes more courage than any fight I've been in." Maya looked at him curiously. "Really, you faced dangerous missions," he smiled. "True, but forgiving someone takes heart. And that's harder than facing any battlefield." They sat quietly watching the sunset. The sky was painted in gold and red, just like Maya's mural. As the evening deepened, Maya said softly, "Dad, do you think Mom would be proud of me?" David's face softened. She'd be more than proud. She'd say, "That's my girl, strong like her father, gentle like her mother." Maya smiled, tears in her eyes. "I miss her." "I do too," he whispered. The wind moved gently through the trees, and for a moment it felt like her mother was right there with them, in the warmth, in the quiet, in the peace. In the following weeks, Maya's life became brighter. She joined the art club, helped younger students, and spent weekends with her dad gardening or painting. The scars on her body began to fade, and so did the pain in her heart. Her teachers called her the Heart of Riverside. And to many students, she wasn't just the girl with the scarf. She was the girl who taught them what real bravery looked like. And though she didn't know it yet, her story was far from over. Because sometimes kindness doesn't just heal, it protects. And soon, both Maya and her father would need that strength again, when a new challenge tested everything they had learned. The next morning, the sun rose quietly over Riverside Town. The sky was painted in soft orange and pink colors. Maya woke up early, her body still tired but her spirit stronger than before. The memory of the cruel prank with the doll still sat in her heart, but so did her father's words, "Stay calm in the storm." She looked at herself in the mirror. Her reflection was pale, her head covered with the soft scarf her mother had given her before the treatment started. She whispered to herself, "You're brave, Maya. You've already been through worse." Then she smiled and packed her school bag. When she walked into the kitchen, her father, David, was already there. He was dressed neatly as usual, his posture straight, his eyes calm but sharp. He had retired from the Navy 2 years ago, but the discipline never left him. "Morning, soldier," he said with a grin as he handed her breakfast. Maya laughed. "I'm not a soldier, Dad." "You are," he said with a wink. "You just fight different battles." They ate together, talking about school, art, and the garden they were planning to grow behind the house. When Maya left for school, David stood by the door, his mind quiet but alert. Something inside him told him that his daughter's challenges were not over yet. At school, things were slowly changing. Some students who had once ignored Maya started greeting her in the hallway. Her calm response to the bullying had surprised many. A few even admired her courage. In art class, her paintings caught attention. She painted soft skies, calm oceans, and mountains touched by sunlight. Her teacher, Mr. Harris, praised her often. "You paint peace," he said one day. "Even when life isn't peaceful." Maya smiled shyly. "Painting helps me breathe." Her new friend, Nina, sat beside her, sketching quietly. "You should show your paintings at the school art fair," she said. "Oh, I don't know," Maya said. "People might not like them." "They will," Nina replied. "They'll see what I see. Hope." For the first time in months, Maya felt like she belonged somewhere, but not everyone was happy about that. Tina watched from across the room, her eyes narrowing. She didn't understand how Maya could still smile after everything. In her mind, Maya was supposed to be weak, shy, and quiet, not someone who drew attention. During lunch, Tina whispered to her friends, "She thinks she's some kind of angel now. Just wait. I'll remind her who she really is." Her friend hesitated. "Come on, Tina, maybe leave her alone. She didn't even do anything to you." Tina frowned. "You're taking her side now?" The friend looked away. "No, I just think it's getting old." But Tina wasn't ready to stop. That evening, Maya sat in her room painting while music played softly from her phone. She was working on a new picture, a girl standing on a cliff facing a storm with light shining behind her. It was her way of expressing how she felt. David walked in quietly and looked at her painting. "That's powerful," he said. "It's how I feel sometimes," Maya said. "Like the world is loud and rough, but I have to stand still." He smiled. "You're learning faster than I ever did." She put her brush down. "Dad, do you miss being in the Navy?" David paused. "Sometimes. I miss the team, the training, the purpose. But now my purpose is you." Maya smiled softly. "You think I can be strong like you?" He looked at her seriously. "You already are. You just don't know how much yet." The next week, the school announced a charity art fair to raise funds for children's hospitals. Mr. Harris encouraged Maya to participate. She hesitated at first, afraid of being laughed at again, but Nina and the teacher convinced her. "You'll be helping other kids," Nina said. "And that's what makes it special." Maya finally agreed. She stayed late after school for 2 days, finishing her painting. She decided to call it Light in the Storm. By Friday, the halls were filled with posters, decorations, and excitement. Parents were invited and students prepared their work. Maya hung her painting carefully on the display board, her heart beating fast. As she stepped back to look at it, Tina walked by with her friends. She glanced at the painting and smirked. "What's this supposed to be? A weather report?" Maya ignored her and walked away. She had learned by now that silence was stronger than anger. But Tina wasn't done. Later that evening, before the fair started, she sneaked into the art room. Her eyes fell on Maya's painting. A small, cruel smile crossed her face. She took a cup of muddy water from the cleaning sink and flicked it onto the canvas. Brown stains spread across the blue sky in the painting. She laughed quietly and whispered, "Let's see her smile now." Then she left before anyone saw her. The next morning, Maya arrived early. When she saw her painting, her heart sank. The once bright picture was now ruined with muddy marks. Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't cry. She just stood there staring. Mr. Harris walked in and froze when he saw it. "Oh no, what happened?" he asked. "I don't know," Maya said softly. "Someone must have done it last night." Mr. Harris sighed. "I'm so sorry, Maya. We can take it down if you want." Maya shook her head. "No, I'll fix it." She sat down right there, opened her paint box, and started working again. She painted over the muddy marks, turning them into storm clouds and waves. She didn't erase the damage. She transformed it. By the time the fair began, her painting looked even more beautiful than before. The brown stains had become part of the design, a storm turning into light. Parents, teachers, and students walked through the hall admiring the artwork. When they reached Maya's painting, many stopped to look. An elderly lady said softly, "This one feels alive." Another parent said, "Look at how the storm becomes calm." "That's powerful." Maya stood quietly beside Nina, her heart glowing with pride. For the first time, she didn't feel weak. She felt strong, stronger than ever. Later that evening, when David arrived at the fair, he walked straight to her display. He looked at the painting for a long moment, his eyes soft. "It's beautiful," he said. Maya smiled. "Someone ruined it last night. I just fixed it the only way I could." David's face changed. Part of him felt angry at whoever had done it, but the other part was proud beyond words. "You didn't fix it," he said gently. "You made it better." When the winners were announced, Maya didn't win first prize, but something even better happened. The principal called her to the stage and said, "This student showed not only creativity but also courage. She turned destruction into beauty. That's what real art and real strength means." Everyone clapped. Some of the students who had once laughed at her stood and cheered. From the back of the hall, Tina watched quietly. For the first time, she felt something she couldn't name. Maybe guilt, maybe shame, maybe respect. That night at home, Maya placed her painting on the living room wall. David stood beside her, arms crossed, smiling. "You know," he said, "in the Navy we have something called resilience training. It teaches us to stay steady even when everything around us breaks. You've mastered it better than most soldiers." Maya laughed. "Guess I'm a soldier after all." He smiled warmly. "The bravest one I know." They stood in silence for a while, looking at the painting and the storm, the light, and the calm between them. But peace didn't last for long. The next week, Tina's jealousy grew again. Every time someone mentioned Maya's art, it burned inside her. She started whispering to new students, telling lies about Maya, saying she was pretending to be sick for attention, or that she made up her cancer story. When Maya heard those rumors, her chest hurt. Not because she believed them, but because she couldn't understand why someone would want to hurt her like that. That night, she told her father, "They're saying things about me again, Dad." David looked at her quietly for a moment. Then he said, "Do you trust me?" She nodded. "Then let me handle it," he said. Maya frowned. "You're not going to the school, are you?" He smiled softly. "No, not yet. But sometimes the best way to stop a storm is to understand where it starts." He stood up and walked to his desk. From one of the drawers, he pulled out a small notebook filled with notes, his old Navy habit of observing, writing, and planning. He didn't say much more, but Maya could tell he had a plan. The next few days passed quietly. Maya noticed her father dropping her at school earlier than usual and picking her up a bit later. He never said why. What she didn't know was that David had spoken privately with the school counselor and the principal, explaining what was happening. He wasn't loud or angry. He was calm, respectful, but firm. The principal agreed to observe things quietly, and when they did, they finally saw what was happening in the whispers, the looks, and the lies. At the end of the week, an announcement was made at school. A kindness and awareness campaign would begin next month. The focus would be on students with illnesses, disabilities, or special challenges to promote empathy and respect. Maya didn't know her father had inspired it. She just smiled when the teacher announced it, feeling hope bloom again, and far away. In the parking lot, David stood by his car, watching through the window. His heart was calm. His training had taught him how to face enemies, but his daughter had taught him how to heal hearts. The true mission had just begun. The morning sun peeked through the clouds as Maya slowly walked toward Riverside High School. The air smelled of wet grass after the rain, and her steps were soft and unsure. It was her first day at a new school. She carried a small backpack and held her mother's necklace tightly in her hand, a habit she had since she started her cancer treatment. Her body was weaker now, and her hair was shorter than before. But Maya didn't care much about how she looked. What mattered to her was fitting in and trying to live a normal life again. After months of hospital visits, needles, and tired mornings, she just wanted to be an ordinary girl in class, laughing like everyone else. Her father, David, stood near the car watching her. His strong face showed calmness, but inside he was worried. David was a former Navy SEAL, a man who had seen fear, loss, and danger in every form. But nothing frightened him more than watching his daughter face the world again after what she had gone through. "Remember what I told you?" he said softly, kneeling beside her. "You're strong, Maya. You've fought bigger battles than any of them. Just be yourself, okay?" Maya smiled. "I'll be fine, Dad." David gave her a gentle nod and stood up, watching her walk away toward the school gates. He stayed there for a few seconds longer, his sharp eyes following her until she disappeared into the crowd. Then he drove away, but his mind stayed behind with her. Inside the school, the hallways buzzed with laughter, footsteps, and the sound of lockers slamming shut. Students gathered in small groups talking about weekend plans and sharing jokes. Maya moved quietly, holding her schedule sheet, trying to find her first class. When she entered the classroom, a few heads turned. Some students whispered, others just stared for a moment. Her scarf covered most of her head, and the slight paleness of her skin told a silent story, one that some people didn't understand. The teacher, Mrs. Allen, smiled warmly. "Everyone, this is Maya. She's new to our school. Please make her feel welcome." A few students gave small smiles, but others stayed quiet. Maya sat near the window, hoping to blend in. She loved sitting near windows. The sunlight made her feel alive. As the class went on, she tried to focus on the lesson. But she could feel a few eyes watching her. Especially from the back row, 3 students whispered and laughed quietly. One of them, Tina, leaned forward and said something to her friend that made both of them giggle. Maya tried to ignore it, pretending not to notice. When the bell rang for lunch, Maya walked to the cafeteria alone. She carried her lunch tray and looked around for an empty seat. The room was loud and full of energy. She spotted a corner table and sat down, quietly opening her lunchbox. That's when she heard the first whisper close by. "Hey, look, it's the new girl," someone said. "She looks weird," another voice replied. "Why is she wearing that scarf?" Maya froze for a moment. She had heard similar whispers before, in the hospital, in public places, even at the park. People who didn't know her story always stared or made comments. She took a slow breath and decided not to respond. But Tina, the same girl from class, wasn't done. She walked past Maya's table and said with a mocking smile, "Nice hat. Trying to start a new fashion trend?" A few kids laughed. Maya looked down at her food. Her stomach felt tight. Tina shrugged and walked away with her friends, whispering and laughing again. When Maya got home that afternoon, David noticed her silence. Usually she talked about what she learned or the teachers she liked. But today she just walked straight to her room and sat on the bed. David knocked softly and entered. "Tough first day?" Maya tried to smile but couldn't. "It's fine." He sat beside her. "You don't look fine." After a pause, she said quietly, "Some kids laughed at me. About my scarf. About how I look." David's jaw tightened, but he took a deep breath. "Did you say anything?" "No, I didn't want to cause trouble." David looked at her and nodded. "You did the right thing, sweetheart. People sometimes laugh at what they don't understand. But you're stronger than that." Maya leaned against him. "I just want to fit in." "I know," he said softly. "But remember, fitting in isn't as important as standing tall. You've already beaten something that tried to break you. That makes you more than strong. It makes you brave." She looked up at him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "You really think so?" "I know so." The next day, Maya tried again. She smiled more, talked to a girl named Nina in her science class, and even answered a few questions the teacher asked. For a few hours, she felt normal. But during gym class, things went wrong again. When everyone changed into their sports clothes, Maya stayed behind the locker room curtain. Her body still had marks from her treatments, and she didn't want anyone to see. Tina noticed and whispered loudly to her friends, "What's she hiding? Maybe she's got robot parts." The other girls laughed. Maya tried to ignore them and focused on tying her shoes. During the basketball game, she did her best to join in, but she got tired easily. Her body wasn't as strong as before. When she missed a pass, Tina smirked. "Guess hospital training didn't help much," she said under her breath. Maya didn't reply. She picked up the ball and passed it again. But inside, her chest hurt. Not from the running, but from the words. When class ended, she walked to her locker. A small piece of paper was taped there. It said, "Go back to where sick kids belong." She took it down quietly and crumpled it in her hand. That evening, David was cleaning the small garden in their backyard when Maya came outside. She didn't say anything, just stood there watching him pull weeds from the soil. "Want to help me?" he asked gently. She nodded and picked up a small shovel. Together, they worked in silence for a few minutes. The sound of the wind and the smell of earth made the moment calm. Then David said, "When I was in training, we had to stay underwater for a long time. It was dark, cold, and scary. Some men wanted to give up, but our commander told us something I never forgot." Maya looked at him. "What did he say?" "He said the ocean tests everyone, but only those who stay calm in the storm find their way to the surface." Maya thought about that. "So you're saying—" "I need to stay calm?" He smiled. "Yes, stay calm, stay kind, but never let them think you're weak. You don't need to fight them with words, just with strength. The kind they can't see." Maya nodded slowly. "I'll try." The next few days were the same, whispers, laughter, small cruel jokes. But Maya began to change how she reacted. Instead of hiding, she smiled. Instead of crying, she focused on her studies. She started spending time in the art room during lunch, where she painted quiet landscapes and colorful skies. One afternoon, Nina saw her painting and said, "Wow, that's really good." Maya smiled shyly. "Thanks, it helps me forget bad stuff." From that day, Nina sat with her at lunch. Then a boy from math class joined them. Slowly, Maya's circle grew, but Tina didn't like that. She didn't like seeing Maya happy. So one morning, she decided to pull a prank. Before class started, she whispered to her friends and pointed at Maya's desk. When Maya entered the room, she saw something placed on her seat, a bald doll wearing a scarf like hers. The class fell silent. Then a few laughed. Maya stopped at the door, her eyes on the doll. Her face turned pale, but she didn't cry. She walked quietly to the front, picked up the doll, and placed it on the teacher's desk. "Someone dropped their toy," she said calmly. Then she took her seat as if nothing happened. The teacher looked around, understanding the situation, and said, "Thank you." "Maya, that was very mature." Her voice carried weight, and some students lowered their eyes in guilt. Tina shifted uncomfortably. The plan had failed. When Maya got home that day, she found David waiting with 2 cups of hot chocolate. "How was school?" he asked with a grin. She smiled. "Better. I didn't cry this time." He nodded proudly. "That's my girl." She sipped her drink and said softly, "Dad, can I ask something?" "Of course. Were you ever scared in the Navy?" David paused, then said, "All the time. But being brave doesn't mean you're never scared. It means you do what's right even when you are." Maya smiled. "Then I think I was brave today." He raised his cup in a small salute. "To the bravest girl I know." They clinked cups and laughed quietly. That night, as Maya lay in bed, she thought about the days ahead. The bullying wasn't over, but something inside her had changed. She no longer felt small. She knew her father's words were true. She had already survived worse storms. Outside, the moonlight slipped through her window, touching her scarf on the chair beside her. It was a small reminder that even in darkness, there could be light, and though no one knew it yet, this was only the beginning of how Maya's courage would change everything. For her classmates, and even for the people who once hurt her.